Vasudevaya. You have your phone? No? 379. Nice odd numbers. Maitre Uvacha. Seyam Bhagavato Maya. Yannayena Virudhyate. Ishvarasya Vimuktasya. Karpanyam Utabandhanam. Maitre Uvacha. Seyam Bhagavato Maya. Yannayena Virudhyate. Ishvarasya Vimuktasya. Karpanyam Utabandhanam. Maitre Uvacha. Seyam Bhagavato Maya. Yannayena Virudhyate. Ishvarasya Vimuktasya. Karpanyam Utabandhanam. Please chant.
Maitre Uvacha. Seyam Bhagavato Maya. Yannayena Virudhyate. Ishvarasya Vimuktasya. Karpanyam Utabandhanam. Bhagavato Maya. Yannayena Virudhyate. Ishvarasya Vimuktasya. Karpanyam Utabandhanam. Maitre Uvacha. Seyam Bhagavato Maya. Yannayena Virudhyate. Ishvarasya Vimuktasya. Karpanyam Utabandhanam.
Maitre Uvacha. Seyam Bhagavato Maya. Yannayena Virudhyate. Ishvarasya Vimuktasya. Karpanyam Utabandhanam.
Seyam Bhagavato Maya. Yannayena Virudhyate. Ishvarasya Vimuktasya. Karpanyam Utabandhanam.
Maitre Uvacha. Maitreya said. Sa iyam. Such a statement. Bhagavatam. Of the personality of Godhead. Maya. Illusion. Yat. That which. Nayena. By logic. Virudhyate. Becomes contradictory. Ishvarasya. Of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Vimuktasya. Of the ever liberated. Karpanyam. Insufficiency. Uta. As also. What to speak of. Bandhanam. Bondage. Sri Maitreya said. Certain conditioned souls put forward the theory that the Supreme Brahman, or the personality of Godhead, is overcome by illusion or Maya, and at the same time they maintain that he is unconditioned. This is against all logic. Purport. Sometimes it appears that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is 100% spiritual, cannot be the cause of the illusory potency which covers the knowledge of the individual soul. But factually, there is no doubt that the illusory external energy is also part and parcel of the Supreme Lord. When Vyasadeva realized the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he saw the Lord along with his external potency, which covers the pure knowledge of the individual living entities. Why the external energy acts in this way may be considered as follows, as analyzed by great commentators like Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur and Srila Jiva Goswami. Although the material illusory energy is distinct from the spiritual energy, it is one of the many energies of the Lord, and thus the material modes of nature, the modes of goodness, etc., are surely qualities of the Lord. The energy and the energetic personality of Godhead are not different. And although such energy is one with the Lord, he is never overpowered by it. Although the living entities are parts and parcels of the Lord, they are overcome by the material energy. The inconceivable Yogam Aishvaram of the Lord, as mentioned in Bhagavad Gita 9.5, is misunderstood by the froggish philosophers. In order to support a theory that Narayana, the Lord himself, becomes a Daridra Narayana, a poor man, they propose that the material energy overcomes the Supreme Lord. Srila Jiva Goswami and Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, however, offer a very nice example and explanation. They say that although the sun is all light, the clouds, darkness, and snowfall are all part and parcel of the sun. Without the sun, there is no possibility of the skies being overcast with clouds or darkness, nor can there be snowfall on the earth. Although life is sustained by the sun, life is also disturbed by darkness and snowfall produced by the sun. But it is also a fact that the sun itself is never overcome by darkness, clouds, or snowfall. The sun is far, far away from such disturbances. Only those who have a poor fund of knowledge say that the sun is covered by a cloud or by darkness. Similarly, the Supreme Brahman, or the Parabrahman, the personality of Godhead, is always unaffected by the influence of the material energy, although it is one of his energies. Parasya Shakti Vididhaya Shruvite. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamanyam Dadati Swavadanti.
You're supposed to purport.
Yeah, it's such a long purport. I'm going to say something about this part and then we'll keep reading. Otherwise, it's difficult to remember what has just been said. Maitreya Uvacha Sayam Bhagavato Maya Yannayena Viruddhate Ishvarasya Vimuktasya Karparnyam Bhutabandhana. Sri Maitreya said, certain conditioned souls put forward the theory that the Supreme Brahman, or the personality of Godhead, is overcome by illusion or Maya, and at the same time they maintain that he is unconditioned. This is against all logic. So the argument is being put forward, a theory, and it's presented very, very logically. How can, well, the original question was, how can the living entities be misled to perform material actions, anything separate from the Supreme? If he's residing in their heart, if there's something so pure, if all of us are part of this superior energy, then how can, unless the Lord himself is also covered, unless there is some covering agent that all of us universally conditioned to. It's sort of like the inmate when the warden or the president comes to visit the jail. See, he's one of us. Look at him. He's also in the jail cell, but he's just visiting. The inmates are the ones who are stuck there. And so this very nice analogy has been given that although the sun is very far away, very completely separated from any sort of cloud cover or snowfall, darkness, it's producing these things. It evaporates the water, and the water forms clouds, and the clouds rain or snow, and darkness is experienced under that cover, but the sun is distinct. So it's a very, very nice analogy showing the relationship of the Supreme with the material creation. There was a story I heard from my spiritual master, I believe it was the Bombay Pandal program. At the end of a lecture, Prabhupada asked for questions, and the man wanted by logic, Nayena. Nayena is in third place, in third instrumental, by logic. He wanted it proved by logic that there is God. Can you prove by logic? Prabhupada said, you do not know what is logic. No, please. By logic, can you prove that there is God? You do not know what is logic. 2 or 3 times they went back and forth like this. And finally the guy insisted so much, Prabhupada said, there is material energy, the mother. There are so many living entities, the children. There must be a father. That is logic, now take it. And everyone in the panel cheered and applauded. It's very simple for the simple. It's complicated for the, they want to make some complication out of something that's very simple. It's not difficult to understand at all. Parasha Shaktir Viridhaiva Shuddhide, I think that was just quoted. Svabhavaki Jnana Balena Chaiva. This Krishna Svabhava, this Jnana Balena, it's unlimitedly full of knowledge, full of power, full of, he's of great action. He's the great and we're the small. And we have this minute independence, this opportunity to choose to move towards Krishna or away from Krishna. But though only those who have poor fund of knowledge say that the sun is covered by a cloud or by darkness. Maharaj was quoting that we speak from our experience, just like those jailed inmates that they see the warden and they think, oh, he's become one of us, just see. But the difference is that he can walk in and out. They're stuck. A lot of these verses are being repeated. Sometimes the point is really being driven home. In Maharaj's class just a couple days ago, this Bhuta Brin, Nacha Bhutasto, this Bhagavad Gita 9.5 was also quoted. That the Lord is Bhuta Brin, He's sustaining all the living entities. That's the inconceivable Yogameshvara, Pashyame Yogameshvara. We'll keep reading. There is no reason to assert that the Supreme Brahman is overpowered by the illusory energy. The clouds, darkness, and snowfall can cover only a very insignificant portion of the sun's rays. Similarly, the modes of material nature may react upon the ray-like living entities. That's beautiful. Similarly, the modes of material nature may react upon the ray-like living entities. It is the misfortune of the living entity, certainly not without reason, that the influence of the material energy acts on his pure consciousness and eternal bliss. This covering up of pure consciousness and eternal bliss is due to avidya karma samya. We'll come back to that phrase. That was also quoted just a couple verses ago. The energy which acts on the infinitesimal living entities who misuse their minute independence. According to Vishnu Purana, Bhagavad Gita, and all other Vedic literatures, the living entities are generated from the Tatastha energy of the Lord, and thus they are always the energy of the Lord and are not the energetic. The living entities are like the sun's rays, although, as explained above, there is no qualitative difference between the sun and its rays. The sun's rays are sometimes overpowered by another energy of the sun, namely by clouds or by snowfall. So there's the explanation that although we can't be covered, there's nothing greater than God himself. The living entities, although part and parcel, are infinitesimal. So they can't be covered by anything except for another energy of God. It's not something separate from God. It's not a third, well, anyway, it's not separate from God. There's three energies in play here. The supreme, or we'll discuss that in a second. Similarly, although the living entities are qualitatively one with the superior energy of the Lord, they have the tendency to be overpowered by the inferior material energy. In the Vedic hymns, it is said that the living entities are like the sparks of a fire. The sparks of fire also are fire, but the burning potency of the sparks is different from that of the original fire. When the sparks fly out of touch with the original fire, they come under the influence of a non-fiery atmosphere. Thus, they maintain the potency to be again one with the fire as sparks, but not as the original fire. The sparks can everlastingly remain within the original fire as its part and parcels. But the moment the sparks become separated from the original fire, their misfortunes and miseries begin. The clear conclusion is that the Supreme Lord, who is the original fire, is never overpowered, but the infinitesimal sparks of the fire can become overpowered by the illusory effect of Maya. It is a most ludicrous argument to say that the Supreme Lord is overpowered by his own material energy. The Lord is the master of the material energy, but the living entities are in the conditioned state, controlled by the material energy. That is the version of the Bhagavad Gita. The froggish philosophers who put forward the argument that the Supreme Lord is overpowered by the material mode of goodness are themselves illusioned by the same material energy, although they think of themselves as liberated souls. They support their arguments by a false and laborious jugglery of words, which is a gift of the same illusory energy of the Lord. But the poor froggish philosophers, due to a false sense of knowledge, cannot understand the situation. It's amazing how you just get sort of checkmated at every turn. Even the ability to go against the Supreme Personality of Godhead is through the intelligence given by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It's you end up in this little maze within your own mind. Oh, he's not supreme, but that very intelligence is supplied by him. He allows these froggish philosophers. They think themselves as liberated souls. This Vimuktamanina, famous verse, to think oneself liberated. This same word appears, Ishvarasya Vimuktasya Karpanyam Bhutabandhanam, that the Supreme Lord is Vimuktasya, of the ever liberated. So he is the ever liberated, and these froggish philosophers are Vimuktamanina. They think themselves liberated. And this is just their lila. Somewhere I think Prabhupada comments that their lila is to be kicked in the face. What kind of lila is that? You come to this world and you're kicked and beaten down. Oh, it's just lila. Krishna's lila sounds a little more pleasant. In the 6th canto, 9th chapter, 34th verse of the Srimad Bhagavatam, it is stated, Durababodha ibata tavayam vihar yogo yadasharano sharira idam anavekshitasma samavaya atmanaivad kriyam manena sagunam aguna srijasi pasi harasi. Thus, the demigods prayed to the Supreme Lord that although his activities are very difficult to understand, they can still be understood to some extent by those who sincerely engage in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. The demigods admitted that although the Lord is apart from the material influence or creation, he nevertheless creates, maintains, and annihilates the complete cosmic manifestation by the energy, agency of the demigods. So let's take a look at these words. Ishvarasya Vimuktasya. So Krishna is ever liberated. Karpanyam utabandhanam. These are the words applied as virudhyate, as contradictory logic, that the Supreme Lord is vimuktasya and yet karpanyam. Real karpanyam is if the living entity is honest, if he's humble and sincere, bhaktosi me sakacheti, like Arjuna, devotee, a friend of Krishna. Then he approaches Krishna as shishya, as a student, not as an equal. Arjuna frankly admits, karpanya dosho bhata svabha. That's real karpanya. He says that I'm afflicted by this miserly weakness. Karpanya dosha, this dosha. Karpanya dosha bhata svabha. Prichami tvam dharma samudhachetam. So please give me instructions on what is my actual dharma, on what is my actual duty, which is to serve Krishna. So this is karpanya, and approaching Krishna as an equal, saying, oh, you're also afflicted by this karpanya. Maybe you should approach me and ask me how to get out of it, because I'm vimuktamani. So this is the perverted reflection of an actual experience in the spiritual world, in which Yashoda and the gopis and even the coward boy, they're climbing on Krishna's shoulders. They're actually in a superior position in some sense by loving reciprocation. It's the difference between the next word, bandhanam, karpanya, karpanyam utabandhanam. There's bhava bandha and there's sharira bandha, or there's so many different types of bandhas, being bound in this illusory state. So I was reading, what section was that? It was described, the verse in Chaitanya Charitamrita that describes the difference between lust and love. That atmendriya priti vanchatarevali calm. That to satisfy one's own senses is calm, and to satisfy Krishna's senses is praying. And at the very beginning of that purport, a verse is quoted. I didn't memorize it, but it says, bhava bandha. That one is bound in real love with the partner. Then it's expressed as, that prema is expressed as, even in the face of all difficulties, all reason to separate, still they remain together. That's real love. And the description is that the gopis, against all obstacles, they have so many household duties, they have so many different things. Maharaj was pointing out the other day, the second Krishna's flute sounds, immediately, oh, I'm being called. Leave it all. Leave everything behind and run to Krishna. This is bhava bandha. It's a wonderful sort of being bound. The opposite of that is the pavarga, which is described as papa babhama. Parishrama, very difficult work. Pena, foaming at the mouth from your hard work. Ba. Usually, Prabhupada says vyartita. V's and B's are interchangeable in Sanskrit. Usually says vyartita, that one is frustrated in one's attempts. But I think in Nectar of Devotion, somewhere also that ba is described as bandha, that one is bound to this material nature. And bhaya, fear, and ultimately mrityu, death. Papa babhama. So this bandha doesn't apply to the Supreme Lord except in the cases of his sweet reciprocations with his devotees. Damodar Lila. Dama, bound, udara, belly. His belly is bound by Mother Yashoda, bound by love. This is real bandha. Otherwise, we are experiencing sharira bandha, tanubhrita. Tanubhrita, serving the body. Ya nirvritas tanubhritam tavapadam. Dhruva Maharaj is praying. He says that we're bound, even if you're a great demigod, being bound by this material body, lulita patatam vimana, you fall out of your airplane. Somewhere in, is that Brahma Samhita, the verse about the Indra Gopa, whether you're Indra or the Indra Gopa worm, you're equally bound by this repetition of activities. Bound karma bandha. There you go. Sharira bandha, karma bandha. There's a book. Yagyartad karmanon yatra lokoyam karma bandhana. If it's not artha, if it's not if the purpose of the activity isn't yajnartha, karmana anyatra, if the karma is anyatra, then lokoyam karma bandhana, then you're bound. You're bound to this material world. If it's something separate from Krishna, then you remain bound. As I walked into the temple this morning, Maharaj's danda was blown over by the wind right as I went to enter, and it fell across the doorway. It was pointing right at Kavi Prabhu, who was chanting. And I looked at the danda and I pointed at Kavi. I said, Prabhu, it's pointing at you. And Kavi Prabhu went, I'm too young. So this sannyas, what is sannyas? Is it just that you pick up a danda and you give up your relationship with your family? Gyeya sanitya sannyasti yona dveshti na kankshati. He's not attached or averse to anything of this world. Nirdvandvo hi mahabaho sukham bandhat pramuchyate. He's happily, joyfully bandhat pramuchyate. That bandha, that binding, karma binding factor, pramuchyate, is liberated. Why? Because he's not attached, he's not averse, he sees the dualities of the world and he remains separate from material energy. Sukham bandhat pramuchyate. The opposite, thinking that this life is all in all. We have that famous Ranam, how does Charvaka Muni's verse? Anyway, he says, Yavaj jivet, sukham jivet. Beg, borrow, or steal. But as long as you're living, Yavaj jivet, sukham jivet. Live happily. Eat as much ghee as possible. Prabhupada points out that even such atheistic philosophers of that time, they didn't say eat meat. He said eat as much ghee as possible. That's real, and even as far as, let's just say, as far as material enjoyment goes, that's the real enjoyment. Eat as much ghee, not open slaughterhouses. Prabhupada pointed out that even Charvaka Muni is one step ahead of the degradation of modern times. But the philosophy is the same. Yavaj jivet, sukham jivet. As long as you're living, live happily, because when this body is finished, everything's finished. A sort of foolish conception. But actually, sukham bandha pramuchyate, to be really happy, to be a sannyasi, means not to be attached or averse, to recognize the dualities of the world and happily be liberated. Otherwise, karma bandha, otherwise bound. And even as far as liberation goes, Hanuman is praying, bandha, bhava bandha chade. There you go, bhava bandha chade. That the being bound by bhava, by this cycle of samsara and this material energy, chade, mukta, getting liberation. I don't want that. If it means I'm not performing service to my dear Lord Ram. Let me remain bhava bandha. Let me remain bound forever if I get to continue serving my Lord Ram. Another level of realization that of loving reciprocation with the Lord is so much greater than all of these shubha. Yadashnas yad karoshi yadashnasi yajjuhoshi dadasya. Then yad tapasyasi kantayat tad karushva madarpanam. The following verse after that is saying that, so we offer everything to the Supreme Lord. Shubha Shubha put it, let's just find it. Let us find it. The following verse, Shubha Shubha Palayarevam Mokshase Karma Bandhanai Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma Vimukta Mam Upaishas. Jai Shri Krishna. I was thinking the other thing I thought when the danda fell in front was, is this auspicious or inauspicious? like black cat crossing, or walking under a ladder, or a mirror breaking. We have all of these sort of conceptions, these superstitions.
Auspicious for me.
I just wished I had been a couple steps further. Bopped by the.
Nope.
What is it? When Prahlad Maharaj is being castigated by his teachers, they said we've tried we've tried bribing, we've tried what is it? Offering a position, bribing, reasoning, we've tried threatening, and finally we need to resort to the fourth means of diplomatic action, danda. When the living entity can't be reformed any other way, then it's time to smack them a little bit. So they were saying this about Prahlad. It's time to resort to the heavy-handed method. He can't be reformed any other way. And they say he's sprouted just like a thorn tree in the midst of sandalwood. And the thorn tree is the perfect hard handle for the axe head of Vishnu to chop down the sandalwood forest. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, yes, what a wonderful analogy. The devotee is the perfect handle for the axe head of Lord Vishnu to chop down the atheistic society. And so wonderful. So the danda flips. Instead of Prahlad being punished, the danda turns around and just starts whacking everyone else. Seems to happen consistently in our stories. The same thing with Durvasa Muni. He sends his demon, and instead he starts getting chased by Sudarshan. Or what was the other? The demon that was sent to destroy Dwarka, and he ended up coming back and destroying Varanasi. Anyway, so many cases where the attempt is to attack the devotee, but instead it comes back. But the point that I was making was this Shubha Shubha Palayareva, that this, whether it's auspicious or inauspicious, all these superstitions are secondary, are inconsequential for the devotee, because Shubha Shubha Palayareva Mokshase Karma Bandhanai. Free from the bondage of auspicious and inauspicious results. Sannyasa Yoga Yuktatma. Sannyasa Yoga, by being connected with this practice of sannyasa or bhakti yoga, Vimukta Mam Upaishasi, you'll be liberated and you'll come back to me. Whether the results are auspicious or inauspicious. And therefore it's interesting, this prayer comes up at the end of the purport, discussing that the demigods are pointing out, oh my Lord, although you're creating, maintaining, and annihilating by the agency of the different demigods, but you remain completely separate. You're separate from this world. And what are they praying for? Please defeat our enemy, Vritrasura. That's the prayer in that 34th chapter of the 6th canto. They finally come to that's their conclusion after all their prayers. And the Supreme Lord's a little disappointed in them. He says, you could have been praying for direct devotional service to me, instead you're praying for freedom from this inconvenience. Shubha Shubha Palayareva. Mokshase Karma Bandhanai. You instead of seeing auspicious and inauspicious as inconsequential in devotion to me to be superior, you're praying for freedom from inconvenience. So although pious, it's a similar situation to, to our situation. You know, various pandemics come and difficulties come, but instead of praying for freedom from you know, these different difficulties, we pray for devotional service. I just saw, there was a purport in CC. At the end of the purport, there was a list of like 8 verses quoted in which Prabhupada said, here's a list, probably got it from the Acharyas, here's a list of prayers said by devotees that they just want exclusively devotional service to you, not freedom from material difficulties. One of them was Dhruva, one was King Kulashekar, one was Prahlad, Narada Muni. There was a whole slew of them, and it was really fun to just sort of click on each one and go back and click on the next one and read these prayers in which devotees are praying it for exclusive devotional service. Not just to the Supreme Lord, but to the devotees. Tvad bhritya bhritya paricharaka bhritya bhritya bhrityasya bhritya timam smara lokanatha. Lokanatha. Krishna is Lokanatha. Also, we Lokanath Lokada Jivana. We have the prayer to the spiritual master also. Our Guru Vandana is specifically to Prabhupada. It's become Prabhupada Puja. That Lokanath, that you're the Lord of the whole universe. You're liberating everyone. Lokanath. So the pure devotee is respected on that same platform. And King Kulashekar is saying, Lokanath, oh my dear Lord, think of me only as Bhritya Bhritya Paricharaka Bhritya Bhritya. Service 7 times. 7 times, the more times removed, the better your position. And instead of Bhritya of the Bhritya of Krishna, we remain Tanu Bhritam, servant or bound by this Tanu, by this body, slaving away for senses that can never be satisfied, like stoking the fire with gasoline. Oh, here, maybe I can put the fire out with a little more gasoline. The result is that it grows, the desires increase. Instead of Yavaj Jivet Sukham Jivet, it's Yavaj Jivet Dukam Jivet. The more you live with this mentality, the more suffering there is. If you actually want that Sukha, Sukham Bandhan Pramuchyate, then Gaya Sanitya Sannyasa. Then you need to have that realization of Yona Dveshti Nakangshati, Nirdvando Hi Mahabhava. You need to have that consciousness of being separate. And then just as Tushti Pushti Kshuddhapaya, just as one gets nourishment, satisfaction, and relief from hunger, then one also gets direct perception of the Lord, devotional service, and anyatra, freedom from all other attachments by performing devotional service. All other yagyartat karma known anyatra, all these anyatra activities that are karma bandha, that are binding us to this karmic cycle, we become free from that. And that's the goal of devotional service, is to put ourselves in a position to be able to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. How limited is our service capacity if our hands are bound? It's so much easier to offer arti if your hand is free. How to free that hand? Well, perform arti. instead of using it for so many material activities. And even when using it in material activities. Here I have I was feeling a little bit despondent when I was working so hard. Actually, lately I've been working pretty hard also, and I think I'll take a little break soon and be more present here. But I wrote to my spiritual master, I said, money, to mammon I bow. I carry ropes for climbing trees instead of tending cows. To end this circus and revive my purpose, your mercy. And he replied, Krishna, to Krishna we bow. With ropes in hand for climbing trees, making progress by degrees. May Krishna's mercy in the palms. A little pun on climbing coconut trees. May Krishna's mercy in the palms free the soul from Maya's charms and lead us back to his feet and arms. So this, even when engaged in material activities, just like the lover with a paramour lover, you perform your duty with even more attention. The devotee is dhira dhira jana priya. Even though they're tyakva durnam ashesha mandalapati, even though the six Goswamis have given up all association with aristocratic circles or material association, still they're dhira dhira jana priya. They're very dear to both the saintly and the ruffians because they're situated in this pure. They're non-envious. They have nothing to gain from anyone. Another translation of this is that they don't have enmity towards anyone, even though someone may attack them. It's sort of that funny little play on words that happened with Vritrasur, where instead of creating someone who's inimical towards Indra, he mispronounced the Sanskrit a little bit and created Indra's enemy. So it's kind of like that with the devotees. We may be attacked sometimes, but we don't maintain any enmity towards anyone else. Just like when we were just discussing in the morning, 6 a.m. Isanga, that Narada Muni is being cursed by Kalikanya. And immediately after being cursed, he gives her shelter. Can you imagine someone comes up and slaps you? You, oh, what do you need? It's like when Bhrigu Muni comes and kicks Krishna. Oh, I'm so sorry, your foot has come in contact with my rock-hard chest. It must be hurting. This is the nature of the Supreme Lord and the devotees. They're so ready to, even when cursed, even when upset, still. Even when Parikshit Maharaj sees this nonsense rascal doing so many abominable things, he takes shelter. Please, give me some place to stay. Okay. You can stay in gold and gambling places where illicit activity are. So, the point being made is this karma bandha cycle. Sometimes it feels, even when we have material activities, I feel like I'm worshipping money, but my spiritual master pointed out, even while in the palms, we can remember, make progress by degrees, free yourself from Maya's charm, go back to Krishna's feet and arms. It's a sweet prayer. Any comments, questions, corrections, blessings? Nectar of one last thing. Nectar of devotion has another type of bandha. The devotee's great hope that they can go back to Krishna, asha bandha. That's another wonderful bandha. Koriya mane asha. Guru mukha padma vakya chitate koriya akya. Arana kori mane asha. I have no other hope, no other asha than to be able to serve Guru Mukha Padma Vakya, the words emanating from the lotus mouth of my spiritual master. So this asha bandha, that type of bandha, bhava bandha, attachment to Krishna in loving reciprocation, these types of bandha, damodar, bound by the belly, there's such beautiful types of bondage. Why sacrifice all that for karma bandha, sharira bandha? You want to be bound to this thing. Yeah, sure.
I want to know what I missed.
Okay, so the class started.
But what was the verse today?
So it's describing that Nayena, there's this Virudhya Nayena, this contradictory logic that they say the Lord is mukta, vimuktasya, and yet karpanya shabandhana, karpanya iha bandhana, that he's vimuktasya, eternally liberated, and yet karpanya and bandha, that he's afflicted by the material energy. There's this sort of, it's bad logic, contradictory logic, that although he's eternally liberated, he's bound in the material world. It's bad logic. It's said that the Lord is covered by material energy. Oh my God, we didn't come back to that avidya samgya, that the original verse is Vishnu Shakti, that para, he has para, and kshetragyakyam, and avidya samgya. So there's the three energies of the Lord described. We just get that third one, that the avidya samgya, the ignorance of material energy being covered. But there's two other energies, para is spiritual energy, and kshetragya, the living entity. So these are the three energies of the Lord. And of those three, the marginal energy, being so minute, can sometimes be covered. But still, they're both energies of the Lord. That's what when I started stumbling over my words in the middle of the purport, trying to explain that there's nothing separate from the Lord. There's not a fourth thing separate from the Lord that can cover all of them. It's the two energies of the Lord that are competing as long as the living entity wants to fight that competition. It's a losing battle. Maya is great, the living entity is small, but when you surrender to Krishna, then you can cross over. Daivi hesha gunamai mama maya duratyaya. It's very dura, very difficult to cross, but by surrendering to Krishna, then very easy. That's what you missed in a nutshell.
When you were describing the position of sannyas as being detached,
Neither attached nor averse.
Right, Prabhupada described the position of sannyas as giving up all plan making for sense gratification. Right, when I heard that, I was like, oh my gosh. Giving up all plan making for sense gratification.
Right, it's disparaging when it feels like you're losing something. But when you cook everything for Krishna, and then you eat that prasadam, you're eating the best. When you worship Krishna, you're seeing the best. When you hear about Krishna, you're hearing the best. You're not giving up plan making for spiritual sense enjoyment. You're giving up this something so paltry.
Speaking of which, we should be planning for Balaram Purnima. We can plan for some really good prasadam.
Yeah, when we were just hearing from, I think, was it Narayani Mata? Someone was quoting that cursing Lord Brahma. Two places in Bhagavatam, Brahma is being cursed for giving eyelids, that blink and cover up the vision of the Lord even for a second. And right after that is my favorite verse, the one Maruti always chants, Akshan Vatam Palamidam Naparam Vidama. There's no greater fruit for the eyes than to see the Lord. So giving up plan making for sense gratification doesn't mean you're bereft of enjoyment. The enjoyment is unlimited and ever increasing. It's just this attachment we still maintain to material sense enjoyment, which is so paltry. How much can you enjoy? Who was it? I think I was hearing a class, and anyway, they were saying, how much enjoyment can your pinky finger give you? A little something, if there's an itch, can you scratch, or maybe you can dip it in sweet rice and lick it. But how much pain can your pinky finger give you? Chinese, stick bamboo underneath the nails, poke it, mutilate it. So much pain can come from every little portion of this body. Every time I I had a semi-bad injury climbing the trees, but I won't mention. But I bruised my leg. Different things happen. Yeah, how much pain is there? How much enjoyment is there? The pain to enjoyment ratio is so ridiculously skewed towards suffering, and ultimately ultimately ending in ma, mrityu. It's the devotional version of life's a bee and then you die. Life is parishrama, pena, vyartita, bhaya, and ultimately mrityu. You work hard, you foam at the mouth, you're frustrated and bound, you're fearful of everything, and then you die. That's the material world summed up. And while doing all of that, while hanging on that little root with snake pit below you and a tiger circling above, you're reaching your tongue out, a little drop of honey is coming down. And then you find out that the bees were getting that honey from the M&M plant nearby, and it's all chemicals. Alright.
Yeah, that's why Prabhupada says you can't just attend a Bhagavatam course for a week. You have to do it every single day. So I found myself like, how can I serve? And it's
Yeah,
just
start with a week.
Organization, yeah, you have to do it every single day. No days off. Krishna consciousness, there's no days off. And that's actually much better than
Ahaitu ki pratyata yayatma suprasiddhi. My grandma just quoted that verse to me a couple days ago. That to completely satisfy the self, it has to be unmotivated and uninterrupted. Otherwise, you'll just get partial satisfaction. It's true. Nice spell. Nityam Bhagavata Seva. And even more importantly than Bhagavatam is the person Bhagavat to render service to the devotees, to render service to the Bhrityasya Bhritya. Keep removing yourself, serve the servant of the servant of the servant. See how many lines down you can trace it. Oh, this devotee was serving that devotee who served that devotee who served his spiritual master. Alright, I'm 5 down in the chain by serving this one. How can I serve him? How can I give him or her some nice service? What can I do for the devotees? Narayani Mata asked for coconuts. I can go pick their coconuts. We can offer them to the deities and serve the devotees. What a wonderful opportunity. I'm so unfortunate that I haven't jumped on it a week ago, but I can do it today. Shall we all go take prasad? Hare Krishna. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.